Hi, I'm Stephanie,
I'm Leon.
and we're going to talk about technology, video games, and a lot of other stuff today. So, what do we have on today's menu?
I believe the release of the iPhone 5 and the introduction of iOS 6.
Okay, so iOS 6. It's one better than 5. We know that.
That's always better.
Alright, so now the good thing is I don't own an iPad 1, so I'm actually able to install it. But I know a lot of people with iPad 1s that got totally screwed on this deal.
Yeah, including me.
And including you. I didn't want to mention names, but... Okay, so... have you been able to test it at all on any of your devices? No.
No.
Okay.
It's a little sad that I can't. The one big feature I was looking forward to was the Game Center improvements. That was like the main thing for me, but...
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I installed it on my devices. I didn't notice that drastic of a difference. I do notice my iPod Touch 3G, or 3rd gen, I should say, is a little bit slower, it seems like, but I could just be imagining it. I don't know if it actually is. It's hard to say. The iPhone works more or less the same. The iPad 2... The big differences are, of course, the Game Center, where I can now send challenges to people. I feel like it's still not perfect the way it's set up. Like, there's no response back to it. So basically, when you go into a game, in Game Center, you can look at your scores. And say there's, like, a score, and there's, like, someone, you can look at your friends list, and someone's in 4th place on your friends list.
Right.
And you just beat them, and now you want to see if... I'm in 3rd place now, maybe you can beat me. So then you send them a challenge and then, see if their score can beat yours. It's kind of cool for some of us. I know a lot of our old-timer friends who relate to old-style games and are into scores. It's kind of a fun little way to track and challenge people. So, that's a cool feature, but beyond what just plainly all you do is send, like, a message to somebody, that's all you basically can do. It doesn't, like, alert the person if you... beat their score or anything like that. So it's a little limited. It's kind of just like a push feature in Game Center. So I'm sure they're going to tweak it as time goes on. I mean, Maps is the biggest one that I'm sure everybody knows about.
Quite a stir over that.
The debacle over Maps. But they have a road, like, mapped right down the block for me that leads into, like, a park where you can't drive in this park. It's grass and there's a fence. So, like, if you're following the map, if you just go straight up the map, you're gonna run right into, a concrete barrier and then probably into a fence and some grass and kill a few people.
I wonder if that's ever happened.
Hopefully
people know how to drive.
It probably has, but not from Maps. I think just that's just the way people in Brooklyn drive.
Right.
So I guess it's almost expected. So maybe they wouldn't be surprised.
That could happen here. Definitely could happen here.
Yeah, sure. Well, what else? Do you know what else was changed in OS 6 or iOS 6?
Those were the hot features in terms of what I was looking at. I didn't have anything else other than the iPhone 5 hardware itself, which was kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, the iPhone 5 hardware is nice. It's much faster. I think it uses some kind of A6 chip, which is kind of weird because it's an iPhone 5, but the chip is A6. So... that's good. It's faster. I guess we wouldn't really notice it unless you're using some kind of intensive...
200 megahertz faster than the previous iPhone. Double the memory, also very good. The larger battery. The phone is physically a little larger because of the larger screen. Yeah. So there's a larger battery there to help with also with the 4G power consumption, because that does use more power.
That's another big feature, the 4G.
Sure.
So now I was reading an article today that says the 4G is actually really fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how true that is, because I don't have one, but, this is what I hear.
Right.
Rumor mill.
Should be anywhere from...
Now, you have a 4G phone, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Now, what do you have?
I have the Samsung Galaxy S3.
Oh, now, that's the phone in the commercial, right? Where they say...
That's right.
Your parents are using your Apple phones or whatever their message is.
Yep.
It's not cool anymore to have an Apple phone.
Yeah, they're very conscious of the competition with Apple, so they have to... I guess they feel they have to address it head on.
But you're happy with the Samsung, right?
It's okay. It's generally.
It's okay.
I mean, I'm underplaying it a little. I mean, it's supposed to be the top of the line Android phone at the moment. But personally, I still find the Android experience a little clunky. A little, yes, it's very customizable. But how much time do I want to spend customizing my phone versus just opening the box and using it right away? It's still very usable, but
So you don't find yourself ever like wishing every icon can like bounce and dance, and you can have like something floating across sometimes.
There's all kinds of things you could do like that. You could have active backgrounds. You could have, all kinds of fancy effects. Some people think iOS 6 or, iOS in general is just looking a little plain. Over the years, it hasn't changed that much, but they're sort of emphasizing function over style in that particular case. I think they're just trying to make it as easy and accessible to everyone as possible.
Good. Consumer Reports, which has in the past said iPhones were not up to snuff for whatever reasons, now they're giving it a good rating, so I don't know if that means good or bad. But and then you have a choice between the Samsung, which is I guess its closest competitor, and the iPhone.
Right. Well.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the Galaxy S3 is a large phone. It's a 4.8-inch screen. Versus the iPhone 5's 4-inch screen. But I think a lot of people regard the 4-inch screen as kind of the sweet spot. People who had the iPhone 4 before that had the 3.5-inch screen, they felt maybe the 3.5 was maybe a little too cramped. They wanted a larger experience. I think the 4-inch really is the right size. It fits in your palm well. You can easily hit all corners of the screen with your thumb. It's great for watching videos because it's closer to a widescreen 16:9 aspect ratio. So I think that's the ideal size. I find the 4.8 a little too cumbersome. I think it's a little too big.
Yeah. And what about anything else on this iOS 6 or iPhone 5?
I think those are the key points for me. I know the camera's supposed to be better too.
Better camera, yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, I use my camera all the time, so it's a major plus.
Some things that other phones do have currently, such as near-field communications or NFC.
Okay.
So that's an extra chip in the phone that allows the phone to transfer data, either to use for electronic payments at a register. You can just swipe your phone and it'll transfer your credentials that way. And also for phone-to-phone information exchange. So either you can swap photos with friends that have the same phone, or...
Well, that's the whole thing, because you would need the other
Right.
person to have the same phone. So you're talking about like 0.1%
Right.
of phone owners.
Until it becomes more
mostly,
widespread.
yeah, I mean, it's mostly unusable at this point.
But if something like the iPhone had it, where a big chunk of people that, have a smartphone would
but even
have an
that,
iPhone.
you would need everyone to have the iPhone 5, and then...
Right.
and then it might just work when you put it next to it. You don't even know how reliable.
It's
like early technology.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And a lot of phones now, they do have like mini or micro HDMI ports on them. If people wanted to use them to output to a monitor, they can plug right in and do that.
Yeah, I mean that's. I always hear that a lot on devices. It's like no HDMI. That's it. I'm not buying this. So apparently, you need HDMI, which I mean you do, but
right.
Everything's HDMI.
It's an extreme situation. You wanna.
I mean, Apple, I guess, wants to sell their Apple TV and their AirPlay function, where you can just wirelessly send something or use one of their cables that converts, their Lightning port to HDMI.
I do have one other comment on Apple Maps, and this was regarding the apology that followed all the negative press that Apple Maps was getting.
Huh.
Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, came out and sort of, gave a public some people call it an apology. I don't know, maybe that's too strong. But either way, he sort of said, I'm sorry for the condition of the current map technology, and we're working to improve it. So it'll keep getting better, and here are some alternatives if you're not happy using our solution at the moment. And he pointed to other apps like Waze or Google Maps through the web browser or things like that. Right. I mean, this is a case where, I mean, if you look behind the curtain a little bit, certainly Apple is maybe feeling the heat from Android and Google in general, and they're looking to distance themselves from Google services. So they want to maybe not rely on Google Maps so much and want to have their own solution. That's understandable from a business point of view. It makes sense for them to keep things in-house if they can. But when it comes to something like Google Search, which everybody is familiar and comfortable with, what will be next? Will that be the next thing to go? That's kind of the question on my mind.
And all right, so that's iPhone 5.
Right.
And is there going to be an iPhone 5S?
A year from now, sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So this is true, for a fact?
Based on past behavior.
Okay.
If
I thought maybe you had a scoop or something. You didn't find one like in a bar or in a toilet or something?
Not yet. It's too soon. It's too soon for that. Maybe if I fly.
You would think, the funny thing is, they find these lost phones,
right.
in bar. But they have the GPS in them. Why don't they use the Find My iPhone app? And they could have just found it if they misplaced it.
I think that might have happened in some of those cases.
Oh, they did.
But they probably don't want to be public about the presence of these phones. They don't want it to be known that these phones exist in the wild before they are released.
Duo Games released this new controller for the iPhone or iPad. It's a Bluetooth controller. It comes with it looks kind of like it has analog sticks, which is the first time there's been an analog controller for the iOS device. Bluetooth, and as far as I know, it's single player only, and it comes with a little stand, not quite as sturdy as this, but stand nonetheless. And the catch is, and it's not Gameloft's fault, but you can only use Gameloft games with it, and it has to be Gameloft games that are programmed to work with the device. So it doesn't even use the iCade protocol that a lot of companies are just using that and coming up with these bootleg controllers and stuff. So Gameloft is stepping into this, or Gameloft and Duo.
Yeah, it's a partnership between them. So I would say maybe it is a little bit intentional that it only works with their own games. Yeah. This is sort of a partnership between the two companies, and they're kind of using it to promote each other's products.
Yeah, I mean, other than. The problem I have with this is that it's $80 for a controller. It looks like a brick. It's got the colors are off. It doesn't look like a sleek, really nice controller like a PlayStation 3 or something we're used to.
It doesn't exude fun or gaming or any kind of a pleasant aesthetic. It's a very industrial, bare bones looking design from what I've seen. Yeah. I agree with that. And,
$60, and right now they have, I think, 4 or 5 games scheduled for it. Isn't a whole lot. It's not their cream of the crop, it's, they have, I think, their first-person shooter and, probably a couple of other ones similar to that.
Well, I was going to say that, probably because of the type of titles that Gameloft comes up with, they do have a lot of clone-style games of existing well-known franchises.
Yeah, they have some good...
So they definitely have good quality games. I don't knock their game library at all, and it certainly probably led to the design of including the analog sticks. That's probably one of the reasons they felt they needed to release their own controller, because they wanted analog sticks in there to sort of replicate a more console style, shooter-esque type of experience. But yeah, I think it's a problem to have all of these different types of controllers on the market that are not compatible with each other, that you can't universally use with any games you might own. I think it's a bad precedent. I think Apple might need to be more, willing to set a standard and say, here's our controller standard. If you're going to make a controller for our devices, it should conform to this type of spec or this type of signaling so that it's compatible with the most number of games, and people feel good about buying something that's going to have value to work with any game that they want to use it on.
Yeah, if you're going to invest $80 in a controller, you want to know that this is going to be long-term. And, I can't think of any console that had an $80 controller that wasn't, a big, huge joystick or something. Sure. So, I don't know. I think they have a big hill to climb with that, but only time will tell.
They have another controller out, I think.
They do. It's a pinball controller. and you're wondering what's a pinball controller. Well, it's basically a cradle that you slide your iPad in, and I think it only works with iPad 2 or 3, or I guess the new iPad, whatever they call it. And it adds 2 buttons on the side and a plunger. Like, I like pinball games, so like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool.
So it's something you think you would be interested in getting for your use?
Yes and no. So I'm gonna say mostly no, and I haven't used it yet, so this could blow me away when I try it out. But I say no mainly because the price. I think it's $60.
Okay.
Retail. Might be cheaper when it hits the stores, but right now $60 seems a lot for a controller with 2 buttons. That you could just tap your screen and do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it only works with 1 game, which is their Pinball HD app, which unfortunately is not bad, but there's an app called Pinball Arcade, which is emulating all our famous arcade games from the past, and that's a phenomenal app. I really dig that. So I kind of wish, they could have somehow worked out a deal, which they might at some point, but as of right now, out of the box, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And my biggest gripe with this, and people might not see it as a gripe, but they should have really, if they're going to do a pinball machine, why not copy, the arcade and build, an actual, arcade with, the little stand that pops up and, to make it look like an arcade machine just shrunken down, Like that I would have plunked down $100 for, just because it would look cool on a stand, It may not be the most portable, you don't want to play it on your lap, but I wouldn't play the arcade on my lap, so...
Mm-hmm.
And I think the market for something like an arcade is the person who can appreciate the design and look of it and willing to spend, the extra dollars. I don't think that's an impulse buy when you go into a store.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there is some value in trying to replicate sort of the feel of using a pinball machine, even if the actual buttons versus tapping on the screen, maybe if there isn't any huge difference in doing that, some people might still like that, just having that feel of being at a pinball machine and using it that way. And this is from a person who is kind of I've always been interested in custom controllers. I'm the same person that has maracas for their Dreamcast and.
Nice.
And
don't tell me you have the fishing rod.
I don't have the fishing rod.
Okay,
I was never interested in fishing games, so I skipped on that one. But I do have the giant $200 Steel Battalion controller for Xbox.
That is an awesome. It works with 1 game, but is
2 games.
Oh, it does work with 2 games?
There was a second Steel Battalion title.
Oh, okay.
But
isn't that an online-only game that can't really play it anymore?
That's true.
So really, it's just a paperweight. But it's a cool looking.
Right, but I feel like I'm a mech pilot when I use it, so that's...
It does, and you look like one, too. I've seen you with the helmet on and the goggles, so...
It's not a pleasant look, but it's necessary. It's necessary for the defense of the Earth. But yeah, that's how I feel. I feel like if you're really interested in a more tactile experience, a more immersive experience, then maybe it's a good option. I don't know. Personally, I'm not a pinball player for the most part. There might be some machines that I like, but some tables that are more interesting than others. But I tend to lose interest quickly in a given game. I like seeing it for the first time, experiencing it, and then I sort of move on to the next one.
Yeah. I usually play pinball for score, try to beat scores, but yeah, there really isn't much, it gets old fast, but that's just my opinion. I'm sure there's pinball enthusiasts out there that are probably writing death letters.
They may have very different opinions on this issue, but it's an option if they want it, so there it is.
Yeah, it's the first on the market, so, if you're a pinball player and hardcore about it, this is probably a dream come true.
Yeah, I heard Nintendo's got a new console coming out this year.
That's right, the Wii U. Now, what does the U stand for? Does anybody know?
I don't know if they. I guess.
University, is it Wii University?
That would be the
implication. That's immediately I thought when I heard that Wii U.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some confusion about this product in the general consumer
confusion.
Mind space.
That's the whole thing with the Wii U. There's so much confusion around it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people that have a Wii already, they're probably thinking, well, does this work with my existing Wii? I think a lot of them might not even know that it's a brand new console.
A lot of people think it's an upgrade, that they just buy this controller and it works right on their Wii, and they could use all their own games, and, you know, I don't think they really realize it's a whole new console.
Yeah, it is compatible with old Wii titles, but they're dropping the GameCube compatibility, so you're not going to be able to play GameCube games anymore.
Yeah, which... that's fine.
It will work with your...
time has gone by enough for GameCube.
Some people might be holding on still.
They might be.
Those Donkey Konga fans, maybe.
Yeah.
But it'll work with your existing Wiimotes, assuming you have them.
You don't throw those away.
It's coming November 18th, so in just over a month from now. We're going to have our new Nintendo console.
Now, do you think there'll be riots in the streets to get these? I know in Japan there will, but I don't know about America.
We'll see what the retail availability will be. I don't think they're shipping very high numbers to start with.
Yeah, I mean, that's typical on a new launch. I think I wouldn't be surprised. But, I mean, to me, with all the competition in the tablets and the new iPod Touch and, you know, Nexus and...
Right, so this is the gimmick with this particular console. It comes with a large tablet controller, right? The gamepad, they're calling it.
Gamepad, yes.
So it's a second screen that's going to be on your lap, basically, while you're playing the Wii U. And as you're saying, yeah, there's all these tablets. I mean, I think they're trying to maybe cash in on the tablet craze a little bit, but it's not a functional tablet that you can use away from the console. It's a controller for that game system, and that's really all it does.
Yeah.
I mean,
so far we don't. I guess the problem is with Nintendo, their track record lately. They promised some things in their systems and Wii and the 3DS and all that, and they haven't really delivered the way the fans have been looking for, or have they promised. So I'm a little wary about this Wii U. I saw the press conference, and I wasn't blown away by what they had to show. The games didn't really, I didn't see it and be like, that looks really, I need to have that in mind. Like, even the 3DS, as I'm not into 3D technology, but I wanted to go to the store and see, what does that feel like to look at that?
Sure.
I wanted to experience a 3DS. The Wii U, I don't know, I've had an iPad, I'm kind of I don't know, I'm not sold on it. I'm sure, it'll sell out immediately just because Nintendo fans are hardcore, like Apple, and
it'll sell out because they're not making that many.
And then they're not making that many.
Initially.
But, I mean, I don't know, long term, I see it being another Wii, or not even, because I think, with the Wii, the older demographic bought it.
Right.
And I don't think they're going to buy this time around, especially, a lot of people liked the Wii and then it went in the closet after they got bored of Wii Sports.
Right, and they don't have any reason to think that this one will be different.
Yeah.
Right, so they might not be willing to...
I don't think you can use the gamepad as a bowling ball. That's
right.
Probably not going to work. And I don't think you want to fling it against the wall either.
I think the other interesting feature on this console is this TV Media Hub service that they've got.
Right, and that's the overlaying of... something.
Exactly.
Right? Overlaying of something.
Well, I think they give you the basic stuff that the other ones do. So you have all the access to all the streaming services that you would normally get.
Netflix,
Hulu Plus,
Pandora, whatever. Okay.
Amazon Instant Video. You get all that good stuff. And they also supposedly support live TV that'll work with your cable provider, whatever that is. But it's not too clear to me how that works. I don't really have an impression of how that interfaces.
It's going to be like a Google TV where you can just plug it in and it bypasses your cable box and it just kind of puts an overlay, or do you need to have an app that you download? Are you going to have to hope that maybe Comcast is going to have an app on there?
Well, they've already promised. They say that they work with every major provider in the U.S.
Okay.
So I don't know if they do that through an app or if they somehow control your cable box or what. I know they also are claiming TiVo integration, but that's really only if you have the most current TiVo model, which is the TiVo Premier.
Okay.
So you can, I guess, stream content from your TiVo box to the Wii U. But I don't know how that works with other systems. I don't know if they're just streaming from the internet using credentials from your cable provider, or if they're somehow working with your box. So that's also a big question mark for me.
We're a month away and we don't know a lot of these details yet.
That's right. And
I think, honestly, all these companies are just afraid because there's so much on the line.
Yep.
And I don't think they even know what the gamers want anymore. There's like half of the people playing, the portable games on the iPhones and the Androids. And then you have another market who just play computer games. And then you have the other market that's just sticking to consoles and sports games. So it's like, and then you have the ones that like the interactive stuff, like the Kinect and what is it, Kinect, or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I don't even think they know like how to market this for the mass audience. I think they're kind of scratching their head. And the funny thing is, you have this new company with the Ouya, and they just threw it up on Kickstarter. It's basically an Android in a box. And this thing, I mean, they pre-ordered, and I think they reached like how many dollars, like over $1 million, probably.
I haven't been keeping a close eye on it.
I don't know. I lost track of it, and it's over already. But I know they well like sold through whatever their initial investments they wanted to make. So that's going to be a hot system actually, and that comes out right after Christmas. So, it just makes you wonder, like, are just people looking for something affordable and cheap, because they know the game's going to be cheap on it? I don't know. It's hard to say.
I mean, as an Android device, I think there's probably a good selection of games that they can immediately throw onto it.
They have a good selection, I have to say. And I'm actually looking forward to checking out the Ouya when it comes out. So
something to keep an eye on.
Keep an eye on.
I don't know that Apple won't be ready with something that gives you the iOS experience on your TV.
That's what I'm waiting for. I have a feeling, and because I already invested a lot of money in all these IO apps. I didn't jailbreak, and I did everything legally, so I don't want to like buy an Android and then stock up $100 worth of apps and stuff, and then find out Apple's like, oh yeah, here's you can do that same thing now in
Apple TV.
Yeah.
Instead.
Well, Apple TV, but that's still streaming. It's not the same.
Well,
because it uses processor power, and
sure.
Not every game looks good on the TV.
But I envision maybe the next generation of Apple TV being a native iOS device.
I think they need to.
Which games will run on.
But they also need to solve the gamepad problem, which goes back to...
Sure.
Whereas Ouya has a nice... Well, interesting looking. I don't know if it's nice, but a nice gamepad.
There's been rumors too of Apple coming out with some type of TV device, their own branded televisions, but I doubt that'll happen.
I can't see them.
Yeah, I think growing Apple TV maybe to be a bit more,
that makes more sense.
A bigger, more encompassing of more features rather than just streaming your iTunes library. Yeah, definitely.
And can you imagine bringing your 42-inch Apple TV to the Genius Bar? When something goes wrong,
they're gonna have to open a garage on the side too.
Just pop the big thing on the bar. Here you go. It's not right. There's a pixel that's not right.
Yeah, and I think talking about all these different gaming choices and all these different devices that are floating out there, nestled in the corner somewhere, I think, is this PlayStation Vita that's been out a while.
PlayStation Vita, that didn't come out this year.
It did.
It did, right?
It did. It's been out about
quietly, not
6 months
quietly,
now.
Yeah, I see people using them, so it's not like it's just collecting dust and people regret their purchases. It seems like I've heard great things about it.
Right.
It looks awesome. I've tried friends.
Large 5-inch screen.
Large 5-inch screen.
High fidelity gaming experience.
Yeah, they ditched that UMD format. What was it? UMD, that
right.
disc loading thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Normally, I would be first in line to buy a new system.
Yeah.
A new portable too. I mean,
it's got 2 touch screens. I think one in the back, one in the front.
Sure, but for some reason, it's eluded me. I haven't felt compelled to buy one.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's game selection or I'm just. I know I say it a lot, but I'm just so. I'm like a crackhead with this iPod, like a junkie.
Sure.
I buy these dollar games every day, and I can't see buying a portable and then spending, $30 or $40. Not that cheap on, something that I'll probably play just as long as I will on this. So, and then there's another thing, which I think might be hurting in sales. And we did a little test. We went into Best Buy, or I went into Best Buy, and just to get a feel and see what's going on with the games and industry and, what's going to be big for the Christmas holiday. So they had the PS Vita. Was it PS Vita, they call it?
Sure.
On display. And so I was like, all right, if I'm a consumer looking to buy this console or thinking about it, let's give it a test run and see what we think. So I go up to it and feels good, looks good. I have no idea what to do. So I'm kind of smart with using technology. So I was able to navigate and figure out how to start the game. And it was loading. And then it was loading. And then loading. And then I figured out what I was doing was actually, I think, just changing menus. Right? We just changed menus. So then I finally found where to load the game. And then I started loading the game. And I loaded the game. And this whole process had to be about 2 to 3 minutes before the game loaded.
Yeah.
Which doesn't sound like a lot. I mean, what's 2 to 3 minutes? But if you're looking to sell someone, what is it, $400? The machine, $400?
It's $250, I think.
$250.
$250 to $300.
You need to have this thing ready to go. So the moment it's in their hands, it's working. You can't have the person.
Well, especially as a portable device. When you're on the go and you might have limited gaming opportunities. You might catch 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there. You don't want to wait through minutes and minutes of credit screens and loading screens while you're waiting for your game to come up. It needs to be instant on, ready to go. I'm in the game. Okay, I've got to put the game away. I want to resume the game right away.
Right.
It needs to be more spontaneous and more available. So yeah, I think that was a big negative in my book.
Yeah. I mean, I was just playing Joe Consumer, and I just walked away from it because I was like, I can't be bothered with this. It's taking too long. I mean, I think that would be what a lot of people would do. I could be wrong, but I mean, you look at the Nintendo DS. I went over to that, and boom, Mario was loaded. I was able to switch to a racing game. It took maybe 10 seconds to change the game. It was really fast, and I was able to test it. I knew exactly how to use it. It was easy. It was cool. The iPad, boom, instantly it's on. It was so easy to figure out. I was just pressing apps, just playing dumb, someone who doesn't know about technology, would they be able to grasp this thing? So I can see why the 3 XL and the iPad and those things like that are selling a little bit better, if they are even. I don't work for Sony, so I don't know. But from what I've heard, the PS Vita is not on the top seller list. In America, anyway. This is America.
Well, I'm sure it's looking to find its footing. There is a lot of competition for people's attention these days, and yet another portable system might have a harder time than in the past in this field of smartphones and tablets, and those are devices that are going to be with you all day long, and it's very easy for you to game on them because wherever you are, and if you have an opportunity to play something for a little bit, your phone's going to be there. Not to mention the cost difference in the software for these different platforms. On a phone, casual games are 99 cents or maybe $5 at the top end. There are some that are trying to push that boundary, but I think they have to be really compelling to want to charge even more than that. So you compare a $5 game to a $40 game. I don't know. I mean, sure, the $40 game might be a more complete console-style gaming experience, but maybe not everybody's looking for that on the go.
I think that's a good point. I think, it's these people say, oh, you're just playing mobile games and they're garbage. You can't get a real, a Silent Hill on PS Vita probably blows away anything you can get on the iPad.
Right.
But is that what people are looking for? Are people looking to sit in front of a handheld with a game like that that's going to take hours and hours of gameplay? And I don't know. I think the casual gamer is starting to become the average gamer.
Right.
I sort of get this feeling.
I think there's definitely something to that. I mean, core gamers will always be there, but I think the expanding market is in getting more casual people to play games.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the growth opportunities are.
No. We were talking now. You brought up a question. What would be the scariest, and I think you said, like, what's the scariest, hardest boss you ever had to fight in a game? And by scary, you didn't, like, literally, it doesn't literally have to be scary, but it can.
Mm-hmm.
But more than the fact that, like, how did you word it? Kind of like...
Well, I found it to be the most scary, meaning the most intimidating or the most frightening in terms of you're playing your game and now all of a sudden you see this character approaching you and you're like, how am I going to beat this guy? That's what I really meant. Like, not physically necessarily scary looking, but just, you know, that moment of dread in your game where you might think, well, all right, it might end here.
Yeah.
My run might be over.
Like, I think, well, originally it came about because I was playing, we were in an arcade and I was playing Sinistar.
Right.
And, you know, you hear that voice and he's like...
he's on you, suddenly.
Yeah, he's on you, and it just, like... his face came out, and I mean, I played that game so many times, but I was just like, oh, you know, I must have, because it's just one of those things that just catches you off guard, and you know, like, you're gonna die in a second.
Right.
So, like what else gave me that feeling in games? Like Ghosts and Goblins. I think I said the little red Satan character who's like a pain in the butt. Like, every time I would fight him, I would know, like, this is going to be a pain in the ass. Like, you get that feeling like, I gotta beat this guy. Castlevania had so many bosses. Like, the last one, you beat Dracula, like, you're fighting Dracula, and...
It's a big deal fighting
Dracula. It's a big deal, because just to get to that point in the game is not that easy.
Right.
In the first Castlevania. And then you're fighting Dracula, you figure out his patterns, you beat him, and then just when you think he's dead and you have no energy, he turns into this huge white monster that kills you in a second. And that always sucks. I hated that. I don't know. Did you think of any? I
mean, for me personally, you know, I grew up with a lot of PC games. So for me, Doom was a scary game in general. But particularly the Archvile character, for me, was truly frightening because, you know, the first time you saw him, he didn't look like any of the other creatures. He was kind of pale. He was, you know, just like this yellowish skin that just like... you know, felt more alien than the other creatures, you know, and you just heard this gurgle in his voice, and when he caught sight of you, he would stop and he would go through this conjuring motion, and then you saw flames engulfing your character, and you know, you have to break line of sight to, like, you know, get out of that attack and not take, you know, more damage. But even after you ran for cover to hide from him, you know, you would hear like this heavy breathing, and you knew he was lurking out there once you decided you were going to try to take him on again. So that was like a scary moment for me personally, you know, until I've gunned him down a few dozen times. But that was like an intimidating boss for me.
Yeah, I mean, I would go to, like, Resident Evil 4 had some intimidating. I mean, those bosses were big, and like there was one that I hate bosses that chase me. So, like, anytime I run into, like, especially in a first-person game, and something's chasing me, like, I freak out, and I think Resident Evil 4 had some of those. I think it's funny that Sinistar is one of those games for me, because it's such an old game, and the graphics are so crude, but it still kind of freaks me out when I see his face just pop out of nowhere. And
the voice, too.
And the voice, yeah.
Yeah, certainly that adds some intimidation to it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if anyone else has... something, I saw like a character they were afraid of or intimidated. Yeah, let us know. Anything else?
I think that's all I got.
Alright, so that's it for this episode, and thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Take
Thanks.
care.
Bye.
Bye.